It is 8 a.m. on a desolate dirt runway in southern Iran, and two rescue planes are sinking irreversibly into the sand. They are not moving, and outside, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is rapidly closing in on our position. Inside the aircraft sits the wounded colonel, me, having just been pulled from the grip of a deadly mountain. Hundreds of special operations forces and two aircraft costing over $100 million each are stranded, going absolutely nowhere. The operation commander faces a catastrophic problem that was never written in any military manual. He looks at the grounded planes, checks the creeping dots on the radar, glances at his watch, and makes the most expensive decision of his career. This is the exact truth of what happened during the 40 most intense hours of this war, told from the inside. To understand the chaos of April 3rd, you have to look back at the previous 5 weeks of conflict. The United States and Israel had launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28th. Since then, the relentless clashes had left numerous casualties and forced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. A fifth of the world's oil flows through that strait, and its closure had caused global fuel prices to violently skyrocket. Just 2 days before my aircraft went down, the Defense Secretary publicly declared that America had total control of Iranian airspace. But on Friday, April 3rd, Iran destroyed that narrative in less than 12 hours. They shot down an F-15 over their own territory and heavily damaged an A-10 near the strait. They even disabled 2 Black Hawk helicopters that were actively participating in search and rescue operations.
I was the weapons system officer in the back seat of that downed F-15E Strike Eagle. My pilot up front was rescued just hours after the crash, but I completely disappeared into the hostile terrain. At 6:50 a.m., I was flying a routine mission over southwestern Iran when something changed that nobody saw coming. A violent impact shook the aircraft, triggering every single alarm in the cockpit simultaneously. My pilot shouted something over the comms, but he never even finished his sentence. I pulled the ejection handle, and the seat violently expelled me upward into the freezing Iranian sky. My spine absorbed the brutal shock of the landing, but my knee was badly damaged when I hit the ground in the Kogulue Mountains. I was suddenly alone in a rugged, rural zone of death, desperate to survive the nightmare unfolding around me.
In Tehran, the Revolutionary Guard instantly activated a massive search, placing a $60,000 bounty on my head. Nomadic tribesmen, armed with hunting rifles, flooded the mountainside, hoping to hit the jackpot by finding me. My injured leg still responded, but the agonizing pain meant that running was entirely out of the question. I had nothing but a pistol, a tracking beacon, an encrypted radio, and the terrifying certainty that capture meant no negotiation. I did not know that by simply staying alive, I had become the most urgent problem for the President of the United States. As I dragged myself through the pitch-black darkness, hundreds of personnel across 3 continents mobilized toward my GPS coordinates. I learned the hard way that the first night is the most dangerous, because the surging adrenaline makes you careless. I moved too fast, stepped wrong, and my screaming leg forced me to stop, breathe, and slow my pace. The survival rules were agonizingly strict. Move only without moonlight, listen carefully before crossing open ground, and never use a flashlight. I was wearing standard flight gear, which offered 0 protection against the lethal cold of the Iranian mountains. At that altitude, the freezing pre-dawn temperature wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a tactical threat that deliberately slowed my thinking.
Sometime during that brutal first night, a local, or perhaps a group of locals, helped me survive. I will never know if they acted out of greed, ideology, or a shared decades-long distrust of the government in Tehran. I managed to cover more than 100 kilometers on foot over 2 nights, limping in the dark with their unspoken assistance. I spent the second day paralyzed beneath a rocky overhang while enemy helicopters relentlessly searched the valley below. I did not move a single muscle, controlling my desperate breathing every time the thunderous rotors echoed near my hiding spot. Eventually, I found a deep, narrow crevice at 2,100 meters of altitude that perfectly concealed me and trapped my fading body heat. Saturday midnight stretched into the longest night of my life, my leg throbbing endlessly after pushing my body past its absolute limits for 30 hours. I keyed my radio for the briefest possible second to confirm I was still alive, whispering a single word: "Bravo." A short, encrypted response broke the silence, confirming that they finally knew my exact location. I closed my eyes to conserve heat, unaware that thousands of miles away, the president was sitting in the Situation Room.
Finding me was no longer the issue. Clearing the heavily guarded path before the Revolutionary Guard reached me was the true challenge. The CIA stepped in with a brilliant piece of disinformation, leaking fake intelligence through Iranian internal channels. They planted a highly specific rumor that an American pilot had been found and was being smuggled north in a ground convoy. The fake intelligence seemed incredibly urgent, causing the Revolutionary Guard to divert their resources to chase a ghost convoy. Meanwhile, MQ-9 Reaper drones with thermal vision circled endlessly above my mountain as my exact coordinates reached the Pentagon. Dozens of combat jets launched simultaneously, establishing a lethal, impenetrable air perimeter around my location. Sunday dawn broke, bringing the heavy, chest-rattling vibration of massive rotors descending toward my crevice. American commandos had been fighting their way up the mountain for an hour under heavy Iranian gunfire. An American support helicopter took a direct hit from a rocket launcher, forcing a terrifying crash landing on the southern slope. Suddenly, I heard the sound of countless heavy boots crunching on the dry rock just outside my hiding spot. An English voice shouted my last name, a sound I had not heard in 38 agonizing hours. I slowly poked my head out, my pistol still clutched in my shaking hand, as a commando with face paint lowered his weapon. He helped me out, but my injured leg immediately gave way, forcing 2 operators to drag my exhausted body down the mountain. The helicopter ramp opened, I was pulled inside, and as the Iranian soil disappeared below, my mind went completely blank.
But the true disaster of the mission was just beginning on an abandoned dirt runway in the province of Isfahan. 2 MC-130J transport planes landed to extract the teams, but their immense weight drove their wheels deep into the soft sand. Without the ability to accelerate, taking off was physically impossible, and Iranian units were minutes away on the radar. The commander initiated the demolition countdown, forcing the crews to abandon the $200 million aircraft. 3 final helicopters rushed in, extracting everyone just moments before the massive planes detonated into a fiery inferno. While I was flying to safety, the president posted that I was safe and sound, only to contradict himself later by stating I was badly injured. Someone in Washington was actively deciding which version of my survival the public was allowed to hear. The American narrative claimed a successful rescue,
where we strategically destroyed our own immobilized aircraft. The Iranian military proudly declared the mission a total failure, claiming they had destroyed our helicopters in glorious combat. They both agreed on one thing: the charred wreckage left burning on the dirt runway in Isfahan. But nobody talks about the psychological toll of those 38 hours in the freezing silence, or the massive escalation that followed. The U.S. issued a terrifying ultimatum to open the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to annihilate Iran's power plants and bridges. Iran immediately retaliated by striking energy infrastructure across Kuwait, Bahrain, and the Emirates. Israel dropped bombs on 120 targets in a single day, while Iran suffered the longest internet blackout in recorded history.
I finally made it out of that mountain crack, but the violent war continued exactly as it had before. When I pulled that ejection handle on April 3, 2026, my single decision triggered a catastrophic chain reaction. That is the true cost of a rescue mission in a shadow war that the world refuses to acknowledge. The planes burn, the soldiers bleed, the world remains entirely broken. And the very next day, we have to fly again.